So I think, Matthew, thank you very much for inviting me to interview today. You're a very brave chap. For those who don't know me, I have been friends with Matthew for quite a long time, but I'm very much used to interviewing heavy metal acts and rock acts. So it's going to be very, very calm for me tonight.
Well, I'm not gushing.
You're not going to go comatose on me? You're not going to have any diva moments?
Maybe.
Okay. So we're here about your second novel.
Yes.
Tick to the Talk. So, it sounds like a very light-hearted title, but really, it's not. Very challenging novel straight away. So, for the people who don't know, so not had to look at your book stand yet, give us a brief overview and don't answer any of my questions yet.
Okay. Well, Tick to the Talk is about a 22-year-old guy who finds out he's just a few months left to live. He has a terminal illness. And it is a pretty gritty, and the majority of people who have read it have said it has brought them to tears like once or twice in the book. But it's also a story full of hope. And I suppose ultimately it's a journey of looking back on your life, wondering what you've put off too often and what you can maybe do into the future. So yeah, it's basically about the journey between finding out and the end, and not just Dante, the lead character, but also his girlfriend and his two best friends.
You say best friend, you put it down as a stubborn cousin.
Yes.
Can you have a family relative that you're best friends with?
One of my cousins is in here today, but he's not the stubborn, rational one. He's not rational at all, in fact. He's the complete opposite to that. No, but it's not really a particular person in mind. The majority of the characters in there are combinations of myself, people I know, people who I would like to know or maybe just wonder about from time to time. So Ethan, the rational cousin, sort of fits into that. No, there's no particular cousin out there who's stubborn and rational.
Are you basically telling me this new book is a cry for help?
Maybe.
You said you were giving me one-word answers. So,
sorry.
Dante.
Yes, maybe.
Dante, the main character. We're talking about 3 months to live. You obviously had quite a mind about killing the character straight away. How did we get to this point, though? How do we get to chapter 1? You're talking about how he's been kind of lazy to a certain degree. You've had to look at his own life and look at what he's missed, what his regrets are. So tell us a bit about him before chapter 1.
You learn a decent amount about Dante and the other characters in the One Day in September prequel series. So you get to know a little bit about their backstory and where they've come through that. But you also find out about Dante's past throughout the story with flashbacks and general musings of memories. But Dante is, for me, just an average guy. The kind of person who wants to do so much. He wants to travel, he wants a big career, he does want to get married, but at the same time he wants to be free and single. And he ultimately just is indecisive and he puts things off time and time again. He figures it will happen at some point in the future. But in doing so, he gets to 22 and is just lethargic. He's doing a career he's not really excited about. He's not depressed, but he's not happy. And I feel it's something the majority of people in the world can relate to, because it's so easy to just put stuff off like that. So yeah, Dante is very much an average, stuck in the middle kind of guy where special things don't happen, and is facing this rather rare occurrence being a ranger.
I need to ask from a non-author point of view. Did you kill him off first, or did you want to, as far as the writing process is concerned, and then work backwards what you wanted Dante to achieve in 3 months? Or was it the other way around? You said, I want Dante to do all this stuff, then I'm going to kill him.
No, I wanted him to be dead.
Did you have a thinking process on how you're going to kill him off?
Well, I suppose when you've got a terminal illness, it sort of flutters out. I mused and thought maybe he could take his own life, or maybe something could happen which would throw a bit of a curveball. But ultimately, I wanted the journey to be about, you know, his journey and how it ended, the way it basically paints itself in the first sentence. This isn't a book where, you know, it's going to be saved by someone at the end. It is what it is. It's gritty and it's fairly real in that aspect. But no, I felt like it would be a good book to tackle, a challenge for myself as a writer, and both for my mindset. And I wanted to write about his journey and about him dying. So as soon as I came up with the idea, I knew he would die. I had a really good idea how he would die. It was just a case of figuring out his journey from A to B.
Did you actually have to do any research beforehand to give a realistic time frame for someone to die of such a condition?
Yeah, I did a decent amount of research, but I didn't want to get too bogged down in research. So what I did is I learned about general illnesses and brain tumours just to get a feel for it. But then I just wrote, and I just went to town on it basically, and I thought I need to write a story which is right for me, and I don't want to get too stuck on the particulars. I'm not that kind of writer who gets drawn in and research too much. So I got through it all, and working with the editor and allowing certain beta readers to read it, I figured out where the holes were, and I went and did further research and plugged it in by putting pieces here and there and everywhere. And I don't know, so far the feedback's been quite good. People have said it looks like research has been done, but it's not a medical book where every single page is about this this medicine or this treatment and everything. It's not really a book about a brain tumour. It's a book about a guy dying and his journey again.
Let's talk about the three friends. Okay, we've got the long lost love, the kindred dreamer, as you described Danny. We talk about the stubborn cousin Ethan and the eccentric best friend. Did you have an idea of the three amigos that you'd be working with Dante beforehand, or did these characters develop as you wanted to plug the holes, if you like?
They did develop as I started writing, very much so. But I had an idea. I'd deeply sketched them out beforehand. I knew that I wanted Dante to be a stuck in the middle kind of guy. And on the one hand, you had Ethan, his cousin, who's, if you like, alkaline, and on the other, Wilbur, who's his acid. So I wanted it to be like that, and I had a very good idea of what each character would be like. But I think Danny in particular certainly grew and evolved as my writing went along, because you have a decent idea of where you're going to be, but until you actually get stuck into the story and you actually write and lose yourself in it, it's difficult to have a clear picture of the characters. And Dante's the same in that. I knew who Dante was, but I didn't feel like I knew him until after the story.
I'd like to focus on something you put on the back of the book. Towards the end, you've discussed the idea of understanding faith, discover acceptance, and uncover the true meaning of love and happiness. Did you actually know what that was before you started? Or did you actually do the writing process going, actually, plumb my neck, Jeffrey Boycott isn't a god of Yorkshire after all?
No, well, it's funny you say it a bit in jest, but it allowed me to figure a lot of things out. I'm not a religious man. I don't see faith in that kind of way. But I think there's something there for people, and the important thing for me is someone understanding what faith is for them. And being put in a situation like that, you're forced to think, right, what do I want to take from this? I've only got a few months to live. Do I cling on to a deity, a religion? Do I go down a different route? So it made me look at things which I maybe hadn't before. And so yeah, it helped me with that side of things. And the same for love and happiness. Again, it's so easy to put things like that off. We're young, marriage doesn't have to come today, it can come tomorrow, but we ultimately don't know how many tomorrows are going to be. So yeah, writing about it, putting myself in those situations, which were very difficult, I can assure you, it helped me learn about myself regarding what I consider is faith, what I actually think is happiness, and yeah, love. And being a new father as well at the time, I had a completely new sort of aspect of love. I didn't truly understand what love was until I had my little boy, so that certainly affected the writing in definitely certain chapters.
Would you say an element of this book regarding the journey is underpinned by trust? Was Dante very much an untrusting person when he started the book, and towards the end of the journey working with his friends? Do you, as a reader, get engrossed in that element?
I don't know if it's so much about trust, although you could take that from it, sure. It's more about he had an idea of who he wanted to be, but it was just flaky. He kind of wanted to be one person, but at the same time he wanted to be someone different. And he was just stuck in the middle. He was just fleeting between one and the other. And yeah, I feel like a lot of people at the age of 22, it's a new adult book, And I feel the new adult sort of bracket, that period in life, we want to do so much, and so many of them things are contradicting. And Dante personifies that perfectly because he contradicted everything. He wanted to be with Danny, but at the same time he wanted to be free and single like Will. So he was just tearing himself apart. So I don't know if it's so much about trust rather than just utter confusion in his own mind.
Regarding the confusion then, do you think it's all about him accepting his friends, working with his friends, or is it just about him accepting his condition and you just want the reader to explore that element as they get towards the end of the book?
Yeah, all of the above. Acceptance for me is a huge element of the book. Like you say, accepting each other, you know, accepting himself, accepting the fate he's been dealt. And it's a difficult process for that book. He feels like he's reached it and he's actually able to accept his life now, but then something else happens and it's taken away and he's frustrated and scared and all these emotions come in, and you know, I suppose cliche ones like when you go through death, you know, the denial and anger and all of that. So he's going through all that process and he's trying to accept it and he wants to accept it because what else can he do? And at the same time, his friend, Danny, Wilbur, Ethan, they're learning about acceptance too, because they've got ideas who they want themselves to be, but they realise as they go along it might not be the right person. And acceptance is a key thing. I think we all want to be accepted, but we honestly don't accept ourselves a lot of the time. So hopefully that will beg the question.
If I go back to the other characters again, we talked about Danny and Ethan and Wilbur. Towards the end of the book, was it a temptation to walk away a little bit from Dante and work on the emotions of like Danny? Because Danny's obviously got that one level of relationship. You've got the family member, where guys are stubborn, but you've also got the best friend who has not the bloodline but has a very close connection. Was it Kent you wanted to try and finish them off, not in a death way by the way, I meant in a sort of a writing way that you wanted to pat them all on the head towards the end, or did you want to make sure the reader went, okay, I'm going to make it all myself just to sort the story out?
Yeah, I don't like to draw a line in the sand in general with my writing. I like the reader to walk away and be able to take their own sort of ending toward it, I suppose. Dante's ending is quite final in the fact that he dies, but it begs the question of what happens after death, and I suppose the reader will take that in, and without spoiling the end, the final chapter is linked to that. With regards to the other characters, I feel they change and they evolve and they grow over time, but they're all still left rather imperfect. It isn't a thing where there's like a light bulb moment, you know, with the penultimate chapter where, oh, this person's growing, he's made all, he understands now, you know. If anything, they're more imperfect at the end than they were at the beginning because they've had to go through something. They're forced to actually consider themselves in that light, which is very, very difficult. So they do grow, and it changed a lot. Probably looking back, Danny's the one character where I maybe would have liked to have added a bit more to. I felt like her journey could have been taken down it, but who knows, maybe it'll lead to future stories. And there's certainly one character in the book which I feel there's a legitimate potential novel out of it. So not a sequel per se, but a spin-off.
Knowing you as I do, and the places you've travelled, was it temptation, or did you actually notice at any point you became a tourist guide because of the travelling that you've done? The travelling to Australia, you did do Camp America at one point. Did you try and use those places because you knew them, or was it a case of you wanted to give Dante a dream, you wanted to make sure that dream could be made reality in the book?
Both, definitely. I felt like travelling was just like a done thing to do if you've only got a few months left to do, especially, you know, young people being what they are. But the places that they visit, it's a pretty even split between the places I've been to myself and those I've not been to but would like to. And I like putting myself in that situation because it allows me to reminisce about certain places I've been to and, you know, add my own spin on it. But it also allows me to just place myself in this ultimately imaginary land. I look at pictures on Google and I watch videos, but I just imagine what it will sound like and smell and taste of it all. And sometimes you might get it right, other times you might get it wrong. In terms of talking too much about the travelling, I read one of the reviews today and they said there wasn't enough of it. So maybe I could have gone into more detail, but again, I suppose that's a subjective thing. I felt like I went into the locations a good amount, but I could have maybe done it. Who knows? So yeah, I did draw off past experiences, and it was fantastic revisiting my time in Australia, places like Brisbane and Sydney and Cairns. But I also got to imagine what life was like in places like Tibet and Cologne and places like that where I hadn't been. And that was a nice bit of research to do. And it's also nice to, you know, it helps with the empathy. And you think, yeah, I wonder what it would be like in this situation right now with, you know, being by the river and what it would smell like. So it tests you as a right child.
The very last line you say in your book, you say, smile, cry, ask yourself what you would do with you had 3 months left, because love and living begins now. So Mr. Turner, what is your 3-month bucket list?
3-month one. Right. Get through it, that'd be nice. I don't know about my own 3-month bucket list. I suppose I do have a bucket list, and I'm going to publish it online once it reaches 100 or what, I think it's about 80 something right now. The honest thing, I don't know what I would do if I was given 3 months left to live. I thought about it, obviously I had to think about it writing this, but until you're forced into that position, I think it's impossible. You don't ultimately know what you would do. There is no right or wrong answer. By choosing one thing, you're going to hurt some people, and that's a big part of it in the book. Dante chooses one direction, and it ultimately hits a lot of people. But had he have chosen the other way, maybe it hurt himself and other people too. So there's no right or wrong answer. In terms of a bucket list for 3 months, honestly, I don't have one. But I do have a bucket list. Some of the things on there, you know, you could do stuff like see the pyramids, watch the sunrise at the Grand Canyon, things like that. But there's also things deep into the future. I want to one day share a nice bottle of single malt whiskey with my son. And things like
a few years.
I'm going to have to wait at least a few years. I'm waiting until he's like 4, no, 5.
6.
6
is a good age.
We're in Yorkshire, so.
6 is a great age. That's why I started. Look what happened to me.
So there's a few things like that, and there's things which are linked into my career, certain people I'd love to interview. And yeah, one of them is I really want to write a novel, like the first draft in a month, and go to some amazing, I don't know, lake house in Portugal or something, and just lock myself away from the world. I really want to write a novel one day with just a typewriter rather than a laptop. So there's a lot of things on the bucket list which I know I wouldn't be able to do with 3 months left to live. But there's a lot of things on there which I think anyone could do. I don't know, I suppose I want people to walk away from the book and go, what? Am I one of those people who's put things off too much into the future? You know, what can I gain from it? And just ask yourself a question of where you've been, where you are, and where you want to go. And you won't figure out any answers there and then, but you may be a bit more conscious towards things. And that's probably the best we can hope for, because life isn't simple. And it certainly doesn't cross the T's and dot the I's, does it?
I think the cliche question everybody gets asked at these sort of events, and we've kind of all come across it, is where you get inspiration from. What I actually want to ask, did anything happen during the writing process and the review process that was very coincidental to what you've already written about?
What do you mean, sorry?
Whatever happened to Dante and Co? Have you read about it elsewhere since you wrote the book?
Since I wrote about it? What, in terms of like real life type things? No, I mean, I was aware during the research process of people going online and doing, you know, blogs about their last few months in life, and I did take some inspiration from that and use that as research, but it was difficult because, you know, you're involving yourself in a life that's ticking away, which is very sad and very hard to be involved in. So no, I've not come across anything personally where it's like I looked at it and go, wow, this is like the book. Thankfully not, anyway. Hopefully not anytime soon, although let's face it, in life, things like that do that.
Well, I spoke to Matthew beforehand, and he also wants to give the option to open up some questions to the floor. Anybody want to ask him a question, obviously book related?
Anyone?
I can't see a lot, to be honest, either.
Hello, Matt.
Oh, okay.
Why did you pick the character so young?
Why did I pick characters so young? I like to write about new adult, and those who don't know about new adult, you've got the young adult market, which are the sort of 13 to 17-year-olds, and then you've got the adult market, which is everything above that. But I think kids these days are growing up so fast, but taking an age to actually come of age. These days, it's 12, 13-year-olds who are dressing like 18, 19-year-olds, and they know more about the sex than I probably did at the age of 20. But I mean, there was a time not so long ago when you were married and things like 20, 21 years of age, but these days we're still living at home when we're 28, 29, 30. We take a while to figure it all out. So a new adult, it's a genuine need, I feel, in today's literature. So I wanted it to be about that. I felt like I could have written about it from a younger end and take it into the sort of teen world, or I could have written about it in my personal world, late 20s, early 30s. But I think a lot of the issues with new adult surround the idea of confusion. That's the area I wanted to tackle, and I felt it would be quite apt to include in death and that journey in that age. Yeah. Yes, Jean.
Matt, this is quite a difficult subject you've chosen, and I admire you for choosing it. But are we going to be enlightened along the way and have a little bit of light-heartedness, a
Yes.
little bit of intrigue, a
It's
little
not all
bit
to
of
you, I
adventure?
swear. I mean, what I would say is, for those who are maybe a bit stuck on the middle, there's already a lot of reviews on places like Goodreads and Amazon, and in general people are saying like they did cry, there were hard moments, but there was a lot of laugh out loud moments too, and light-hearted moments. There's times in it where they skydive and they have funny conversations. My aim when I did this, I wanted it to be an emotional roller coaster where 1 minute you were maybe really down and dubbed, but the next minute on top of the world, because they're doing this amazing thing. They're travelling amazing places. They're going to places like Tibet and Australia and New Zealand, doing things which, I think are on most people's to-do list. So they're doing amazing stuff, but it's just surrounded by this very, unfortunate circumstance. So it is hard. I won't lie, but you probably will shed a tear from time to time, but you will, laugh and smile as well. So yeah, it's not like torture. I don't think anyone's going to slip their wrists reading this. So.
Ultimately, I think it's, in a way, it's a gift, because, 22-year-olds can die in the blink of an eye, and they can die over a period of time. Do you think, if you had the choice, would you have this sort of prolonged death, where you have the choice to enjoy life, or would you prefer it to be instantaneous? Personally, having sort of considered all this.
It's a very good question. I suppose part of it would, if it's just taken away from you at any given second, you're probably not going to feel the pain so much. You're not able to think about it. But yeah, I probably would prefer to have a little bit of time to think about it now, because, like I say, I'm a father now, and it gives you a complete new perspective on life. I'm sure you understand that, and appreciate us having a little girl too. The idea, of waking up one day and leaving the house and not having another chance to see my little boy or say goodbye, that is, beyond hard. So yeah, at least to have some time to, reflect, it would be equally difficult, and I don't know quite how I would react to it. But it does give you a bit of time to at least make sure you're saying everything you need to say to the people you love. You get to, make your life something rather than just having no time at all to think about it. So I probably would want a bit of time, but I think I would definitely want longer than 3 months. It's great.
When you had finally killed off your character, did you miss him? Did you feel? Did you identify with him?
Yeah, I did. It's I remember when I first drafted out that final chapter, and it was hard. It was, I was welling up as I was writing it. It was a big part of my life. But no, I don't know. Because I was so in tune with his mind, because it's told from his first-person perspective, I felt like, I don't know, I was too involved in him. So I probably miss the other characters more than Dante. But all the time I knew what Dante's end was going to be. Whereas Danny and Wilb's and Ethan's, I didn't really fully know what their end was going to be until quite late in the editing process. Between first draft and actually sending it to print, Dante's circumstances didn't change all that much. But the other three characters changed a decent amount. So I probably miss Will and Danny and Ethan more. But no, it was hard to finally do the final chapter with Dante all online.
So a few books have really famous first lines. How important do you think first lines are, and how do you come up with your first line?
Would you like to hear the first line?
I haven't read the book, so I have no idea what.
No, I'll read it.
I know you're about to.
The first line for TOCK is, "To never reach the age of 23 is unjust, but this is the fate I face." So for me, right there, it's telling it from the beginning, like, this is a guy who's going to die. Like, this is what the journey is about. So I've always thought, like, first lines are important, and I love those blog posts which have, like, famous 50 first lines in books, and they can be so defining. I don't think a book needs an amazing first line, but that first sentence, that's the first thing anyone's ever going to read, reviewers, editors, readers, whoever. And if you can have something that is both, I suppose, poetic and meaningful, that's pretty cool. And I always love it when I find a book and that first line just sort of takes me back a little bit, rather than it's just a pretty bog standard one. But I suppose that's just my opinion.
Was the recommended listening suggestions that you put in, are they all songs that mean something to you?
Yes, yeah, in general. There's 101 songs on the recommended playlist, so each chapter starts with recommended listening, which should ideally sync up with the time you take to read that chapter. And they, in general, are things which resonate with the chapter itself, what's going to happen, and they're songs which, I like myself. I don't necessarily listen to music as I write, but I listen to music as I walk places, as I read, as I reflect. So yeah, they very much resonated with my own personal sort of passion, but also the book itself and the story and the journey. And yeah, the link is on the start of the book, and it's like a full Spotify playlist. So if anyone wants that and doesn't get it, just let me know. I'll send them the link. 101 pretty awesome songs, aren't they?
Make them buy the book.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sorry, you have to buy the book. I forgot to tell that, we're going to lock the doors soon. I've literally brought up enough books for everyone in here. Certain people I don't like, but I'm going to pass it off as a love needs to buy two. One person needs to buy
the expensive one.
Yes.
Instead of the old book and the new one.
One particular person needs to buy like 4.
Why are you going to really say that? Is it 101 indie songs, by the way?
No, it's more folky, really. Yeah. More folk, a bit of country in there, and a lot of lo-fi. You would hate it. I wouldn't recommend you.
So should I do 101 like Slayer tunes?
No.
No.
That would.
Any more questions?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, fight.
No, mine's
We'll go.
perfect.
Oh my gosh.
Fight.
Fight. Arm wrestle. Sounds like that.
Go there, this one.
Mine's
Please.
going to allow you to just self-promote, basically. So we're here tonight, we can buy the book, but where can we buy it? Or we recommend it to our friends and family?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. This is the first time I've actually printed books, and they're going to be in a few shops. So as of tomorrow, you'll be able to get your physical copy in Trinket, where Andrea is there. So Andrea's lovely shop, Trinket, and Deli Belge from Andrea, who is. Has she gone? She's the one who donated the cheese. So yeah, Deli Belge, and also Harvey's in town, and hopefully a few other places around the local area, a couple in Hepton and maybe Halifax too. So yeah, and if you go onto the website, there's a list of those places which will be updated as we go along. And I will just like I say, until midnight on Friday, if you're an ebook reader or you want to gift your friend or loved one, which you can do on Amazon, it's like 75p. And if I'm not worth 75p to you, then shit, man. I should probably just give up. The only person who I think is like too cheap to do that is probably John Greenwood.
Are you wanting us to start crying now?
But he's the one who I've kind of got for like 4.
Question me?
Yeah, hi Matthew. All of the characters that you described sound to be fairly sympathetic, including the main character. It's really flawed. But even his name is quite sort of romantic. But I wondered, are there any villains in the book, or does the central character have a darker side?
Man, this should be a villain. I feel like every feature, there should always be a ninja in a book. So I'm a bit disappointed I didn't put a ninja in there. But no, there's not really a villain. I suppose Wilbur's the closest thing to a villain. I describe Wilbur as a Marmite character. Some people love him because he's just crazy and energetic and the kind of people who, I think a lot of people know, maybe not quite as extreme as him, but a lot of people know those. But a lot of people hate him because he's pretty much a dick at the same time too. But I feel most people will probably fall in love with him and then hate him and fall in love and hate. He is the definition of a roller coaster character where you want to love him and you want to feel sorry for him, but he makes it very difficult because he is at times a quite heartless and too flawed human being. But you learn why as you go along and the sympathy comes back. So he's the closest thing to a villain, but he doesn't have like an evil chuckle, although he does have like facial hair like mine, so he could look a little evil.
You could say the illness is the villain, couldn't you?
Huh?
The illness.
Yeah,
brain
tumor.
yeah.
It's pretty evil.
Pretty evil throughout the book.
Pretty evil.
And he gets his own way at the end.
He did some pretty bad things. That illness. Yeah. He's a dick.
Or brain tumour.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Deep dark corner? Just all stare at me. Oh. Do you?
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Okay.
How did I get into writing? It was actually about 2006, and it was after a bad breakup, and she recommended it as a form of therapy, really. Yeah. I can tell you, writing is not therapy. She was wrong. But that's when I started writing my first novel, Beyond Parallel. And I wasn't a writer at the time, but I always enjoyed telling stories and making up things, lying, really. So yeah, it started then. And on and off over the years, I went back to it. And it got to a point probably around about 2010 where I felt like I need to either finish this book or just put it in a drawer and never look at it ever again. But if I'm going to finish it, I need to actually take it seriously. I need to probably read up on some things, find out a little bit about technique and writing and take it seriously. So yeah, I started in 2006, but I think it was probably 2010 when I started taking it seriously. And it was generally just to finish a novel. I don't like to not finish things. And I had this novel which was done but not. So yeah.
How do you know when it's finished?
When I'm just like insane. When so much of it has been just like taken over my mind, because you can never finish a novel.
No, exactly.
It's just the never-ending story is true in that sense. Because if I I won't read this book again, because if I do, I will be like, I wish I could change that, and it's not worth it. But you get to a point where you think, right, have I taken it as far as I can go right now? And it's not an exact science, but you start to get a feel of it when you're not making as many edits, when people in general are saying, yeah, it's nearly there, and that's when you just have to right, cut the cord.
Question number 3, gosh. Do you have a sort of narcissistic relationship with it though? That's what I'm kind of, do you love your writing?
Love hate. Some days I really like it and I read what I write and go, oh, wow, that's cool. And then I'll read the same thing the day after and go, what? So yeah, love-hate relationship. Some days I love it, other days I hate it, and I really can never tell what Matthew Turner's gonna think that particular day. It's a tough process. It's as simple as that. And I think anyone who's a creative, whether it's writing, painting, whatever it might be, I think most creatives go through that. We're quite insecure in ourselves, and when people give me praise, I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? When people give me criticism, I'm like, well, it's not that bad, surely. So, yeah, I am very much stuck in the middle, I'm afraid. So. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the author, Matthew Turner.